Hello and welcome to Friday the 5th of March's Phonics for Grasshopper and Dragonflies class. So we are going to start off with looking for the final time at our words of the week. Can we practice reading these words? Can you call them out? Ready? Under, river, better, mother and never. And our challenge is today, can you write each word in a sentence and not just say them? Write them in a sentence. Okay, so you might say, I have never eaten a pineapple. Whatever your sentence might be, can you write each word into a sentence? And you might even use more than one word in a sentence, like, I went under the bridge where there was a river above. Something like that, maybe. Have a little go. And of course, you might want to use some memory strategies to help you remember those spellings of finding how many syllables are in a word, finding its root word, using a spelling pattern, or putting it into a sentence that will help you. So we're going to have another recap here of adding the ER suffix to words. It usually makes a noun, usually a person, so read would become reader. When a word ends in an E, we don't double that E, we just add an R. Drive becomes driver. When we add the ER suffix to a word with a single consonant at the end and a short vowel sound, we double that consonant before adding the suffix. So run would become runner. And then when we have an X at the end, we just add ER. That root word does not change. So mixed becomes mixer. So we looked at how one syllable adjectives in English follow the rule of adding ER. However, adjectives that have 3 or more syllables do not follow that rule of adding the ER. So we have to put the words more or less before them to make them become comparatives. So we had their importanter. Well, that didn't make sense, did it? So we have to say more important or less important. And then we had interestinger. That also doesn't make sense, does it? So we'd need more interesting or less interesting before it so that it makes sense. So there are a few exceptions to the rule that we looked at yesterday. Okay, so adding ER to words with more than 3 syllables. The following 2-syllable adjectives can't have ER added to them, so they are also preceded by more or less. So we've got the word tired. Okay, tired. We wouldn't say tireder, would we? Okay, and then we've got pleasant. We wouldn't say pleasanter. Careful. Would we say carefuller? No. Dreadful. Would we say dreadfuller? No. Famous. Would we say famouser? No. Peaceful. Peacefuller? No. So, are these all correct? Definitely not. They are not correct. What we need to put before them, of course, is more or less. So, generally speaking, a word with a suffix already added to it can't have another suffix added to it, in this case, ER. Tired's already got ED at the end. Careful and dreadful and peaceful have full at the end. Famous, us is a suffix that we can add to the end as well. So it doesn't make sense, does it, adding the ER to those? So we would just need to put something like more tired, less tired, more pleasant, less pleasant, more careful, less careful, more dreadful, less dreadful, more famous, less famous, more peaceful or less peaceful. And then that makes it make sense, because it doesn't make sense when we add the ER to the end of them. So, some examples of some comparative sentences we're going to look at now. Comparative adjectives are used to compare one noun to another noun. In these instances, only 2 items are being compared. So, my house is bigger than yours. So, they're comparing 2 houses using the word bigger. Your cut is worse than mine. The Pacific Ocean is deeper than the Arctic Ocean. My brother is taller than I am, but he is older too. A rose is more beautiful than a daisy. The earth is larger than the moon. Learning Japanese is more difficult than learning Italian. Now, all of those sentences are comparative sentences, where they're comparing two things to another. Two of those sentences do use the more or the less, okay? Whereas some of them just use the ER to compare. So we've got the word bigger, that's just adding ER, comparing the houses. Worse, okay, is another word for bad, isn't it? We can make that from, you wouldn't say my cut is badder than your cut is badder than mine. Okay, so we have to completely change that word because it doesn't make sense. So we change that word to worse. Okay, then we've got deeper, as in the ocean is deeper. We're just adding the ER. Taller and older, just add the ER. But then we've got beautiful. I wouldn't say beautifuler, so I've got more beautiful. I've then got the earth is larger than the moon, so that's just adding the ER. And lastly there, Japanese is more difficult than learning Italian, because I wouldn't say difficulter. Okay, so I'm using the word more in front of it in that case. So all of those sentences are what we call comparative sentences. We're comparing two things together. So you might want to pause the video at this point so you can have a closer look at those sentences, try reading them for yourself and really taking in what it is that we mean by comparing two things together in a sentence. So let's see if we can read this sentence together now. She is more famous than me, but I am more intelligent than her. So let's slow it down. So we've got she is more famous than me, but I am more intelligent than her. Should we speed it up? She is more famous than me, but I am more intelligent than her. So that sentence uses our more in front of the word. I wouldn't say she is famouser than me, but I am intelligenter than her, because that just doesn't make sense. So we've put more in front. She is more famous than me, but I am more intelligent than her. So the challenge is, can you write this sentence down? Perhaps rewind the video so you can hear me speak it and you can write it as I speak, or ask someone who is in the room with you if they can read the sentence out to you and you can write it down. So she is more famous than me, but I am more intelligent than her. So we're going to have a look at making some sentences now. So can you use these words to make your own comparative sentence? So I've got the word tired, pleasant, careful, famous, dreadful, and peaceful. Okay, all words we looked at earlier on. I wouldn't be saying tireder, pleasanter, carefuller, famouser, dreadfuller, or peacefuller. I'm going to be using more or less in front of them. I might say more tired, less tired, more pleasant, less pleasant, more careful, less careful, more famous, less famous, more dreadful, less dreadful, more peaceful, less peaceful. Let's have a look at some examples here of a comparative sentence using some of those words. So you could put, I am more tired than you. Okay, or of course you could change it to, I am less tired than you. Another sentence here, I've put, the park is more peaceful than the playground. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now, pause the video at this point and write those words down. Okay, and then have a little go at seeing if you can make up your own comparative sentences using those words. You never know. Some of you might be able to put two words into a sentence, but some of those words might be a bit tricky to put into a sentence. So you need to have a really good think first. Okay, and don't forget, because we can't add the ER suffix to these words, we must put more or less in front of them. I look forward to seeing some of your sentences if you decide to write them up and post them on Teams. And I'm sure you will get really super creative with them. And that is it for today's lesson. And that is it for this week's sessions of phonics. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Goodbye.